So we've been talking about 1919, and it's based upon your initial analysis, which is starting to look pretty damn correct, of the duration of this COVID-19 to last around the same amount of time as the 1918-1919 pandemic, the Spanish flu. Mm-hmm. We've been looking at what happened right after that occurrence in 1919, and we know that the Chicago race riots, which were some of the worst ever in history, kicked off in 1919. Now, wouldn't you know it, that one of our producers, Todd, is a teacher. He says, I recently taught my high school U.S. history students about the no good, very bad, horrible year that was 1919. I made the following case to my students that 1919 may have been even worse than 2020. He even sent me his slide deck that he used in class, but I will give you the highlights. So this is, if we have a complete repeat, here's some of the things that happened in 1919.
And we should mention that 1919 would be the equivalent of 2022.
Correct. A molasses tidal wave killed 21 and destroyed much of North Boston.
I've heard, yes, I knew this. I was reading about the molasses tidal wave. It was hilarious. Not funny to anyone drowning in molasses.
No, molasses
that's the
like,
worst way to go.
Well, it's tasty, but still, that's a oof. And what happened?
I forget. I don't remember.
It didn't just come out of the ocean.
Molasses was a big product, and there was some factory that had these giant barrels, massive, like oil refinery sized barrels of molasses, and I guess a couple of them ruptured or something, and a wave of molasses overtook a whole area of the town, and people drowned.
That is worth a movie of the week, at least. That would be a great movie. All right, next on the list, the 18th Amendment was ratified. This is the Prohibition Amendment. Could we see something similar?
Ooh,
Prohibition.
I don't know any analogs. I'd have to think about it.
Well, that was prohibition of alcohol, of course, at the time.
Yeah, but prohibition of anything that's stupid would apply. Now, we have to remember, when the Prohibition era took place, Americans were drinking like
fish.
The amount of drinking that went on was beyond compare. We don't even have a clue what it was like, because the average citizen was drinking like 2 bottles of vodka a day, kind of thing.
Well, wasn't that in the same time in Britain, people they had the gin carts on the street, and they'd just be out there hammered all day on gin?
There was an alcohol problem, yeah.
I'm thinking, we could bring that back. Anyway, 1919 was the Red Summer. This is the Chicago race riot. Chicago was the largest of 26 across the country. We had post-war inflation and high. It says high employment. I guess high employment. Oh, the returning soldiers caused all kinds of labor strife, strikes, and violence. An estimated 4 million American workers went on strike. So we're kind of seeing the anti-work
we're seeing
movement.
Strikes right now.
And we're also seeing the anti-work movement.
And the anti-work movement that fits right in. That's good. We should make a little chart.
Well, I'm going to read this to you.
An equivalency chart.
Yeah. Oh, yes, that's good. Okay. Someone is taking notes, and will do it for us. We have producers. The entire city of Seattle went on strike for 3 days. The entire Boston Police Department went on strike, and Massachusetts Governor Calvin Coolidge backed the firing of all of them. 300,000 steel workers.
I should mention that this was I believe that these strikes, which were taking place, are general strikes, they're called.
Yes.
I think it was this period that produced the literal laws against general strikes. A lot of people don't realize it. You can't do it legally, call for a general strike in this country. Correct. It's illegal.
It's illegal to do that, yeah. We're no commies, that's why. 300,000 steel workers went on strike. 400,000 coal miners went on strike. This could all happen. I see this repeating easily. Then we had the Red Scare. Anarchists, domestic extremists, were mailing bombs all over the country. One anarchist blew himself up in front of Attorney General A. Mitchell Palmer's house. The Roosevelts lived across the street. Of course, the blame was placed on immigrants and Bolsheviks. The Red Scare. So it was a false flag and blamed on the Reds.
Palmer wasn't a false flag. These guys are actually bombing the places.
No, but they blamed it on someone else. So you're right.
No,
what
they
wasn't
blamed it on who was doing it.
The anarchists were the Bolsheviks?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, commies. Palmer instructed J. Edgar Hoover to investigate the Red problem, which led to the Palmer raids, where thousands were rounded up across the country, many without warrants or being charged. January 6th, anybody?
Well, January 6th, 1/6. They got a bunch of guys rounded up without being charged. The guy who did the most interesting story, which isn't really discussed much, and I don't have a clip, is the guy who did the walk away movement for, quit the Democrat Party.
Yeah,
that guy.
Yeah.
He got railroaded by the FBI. He was filming during the thing. He had nothing to do with anything, and they threw him in the slammer. And he's out floating around trying to get on some talk shows.
Yeah.
He barely can do it. It's a travesty of justice.
Yeah. We even loaded 3,000 insurrectionists or Bolsheviks or activists or whatever onto a boat without due process and shipped them to join their Bolshevik friends in Russia. Wow, that's badass. I didn't know he did that. That's pretty funny.
No, that's not happening.
The ACLU was founded in 1920 to protest the unconstitutional violation of civil liberties. Well, the ACLU is now a piece of crap. So that
Good for one thing.
Good run.
Extreme.
You had a good run, guys. A good run. Many legal civil liberty violations continue to occur under the authority of the Espionage and Sedition Acts being used right now, passed during World War I. People are being held on seditious conspiracy, which I don't even know that's a thing. The White Sox in 1990. They worked with, in 1919, worked with the gangsters to throw the World Series to the Black Sox.
No, they were considered the Black Sox.
Oh, see, I don't know what I'm talking about. Who did they play against?
I don't know who it was.
The Cubs?
I don't know who it was against, but the White Sox's scandal, which resulted in a number of Barefoot Johnson, whatever his name is, one of the most famous baseball players of all time. They threw the games, and then they were nicknamed the Black Sox.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And because they got busted. I don't know how this happened, but it was a notorious situation.
So we can just say the analog is rigged sports, something you talk about
the analog
often.
now as you bring it up, the analog today is the fact that this guy Flores, one of the coach of the Miami Dolphins, and then an old coach from the Cleveland Browns, say that their coaches told them to throw games. Mm-hmm. This is this week.
That's what I'm saying.
In sports news.
Yeah. In 1919, America also ratified the 19th Amendment securing women's right to vote. Well, there you go. Voting rights bill. Hotly contested right now.
Yeah, that's things like that. Yeah, that's not to get women to vote. That's to ensure that the Democrats will be the only people you can elect.
This is true. All of this was happening. Our producer continues. As all of this was happening, President Woodrow Wilson was either in Paris for the 1919 peace conference or failing to convince the Senate to ratify the Treaty of Versailles because it included his League of Nations idea, now, of course, the United Nations. Wilson suffered a stroke while campaigning for the treaty. Hello, Joe Biden! The stroke left him...
And I should mention, just to straighten out the history a little bit, the League of Nations never became the United Nations.
Correct.
It failed.
That was the initial idea. It was the
initial kind of idea. It was in San Francisco. It failed. We never joined it, but it was still going on, and the whole thing flopped. And then Hitler came along, and that was the end of it. The United Nations was the World War II attempt to do the same thing, and it still stinks. So I don't know.
But now listen to this. So our president at the time, Woodrow Wilson, suffered a stroke while campaigning for the treaty. It left him incapacitated until the end of his term, which was covered up from the public. Could it be any more analog?
And in fact, Woodrow Wilson's problem, which everyone knew about, but the media wouldn't report it to the public, and the media, again, is not reporting anything to the public that it should, is the reason for the 25th Amendment.
Yes, of course. Wasn't his wife running the show for a while?
Yes, his wife was running the show just like Jill Biden.
This is history, baby.
She's a pleasant woman, Jill Biden.
She's very pleasant.
Yeah.
Todd continues, let's all hope and pray America doesn't suffer a year like 1919. Well, Todd, it seems like we're right in the middle of it with a lot of things matching up. No wonder Republican Warren G. Harding won the 1920 presidential election on a campaign pledge of, quote, a return to normalcy. Yeah, that's what Biden ran on. So we're kind of askew there. A campaign he ran from his front porch in Marion, Ohio. So that's a year late.
That's again Biden in the basement.
Biden in the basement. But that was, the year after. That was the 2022 election. So I thought this was fascinating. It really hit home.
Send me the deck.
Yes, of course I will. And then one